Hello, and welcome to our first podcast of 2025. On a freezing cold day, I am excited to be all tucked in and cozy with Mike Brubaker of Brubaker and Associates. I cannot think of a better place I'd rather be than at Bernstein Realty with my pal Mike Brubaker. So thank you all for listening in today. What a better way than to learn a little bit about appraisers from really a fantastic guy, Mike Brubaker, who knows so much about appraisals. And I just asked him a question personally about something, and he called his office and got the answer for me. So that's fantastic. But so welcome, Mike, and thank you.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
I love having you. And Mike and I go way back, and we've both been in the industry for, it seems like, forever and ever. So we just sent out a big announcement for Bernstein Realty that in January we are celebrating our 40th anniversary. So I asked Mike how long he's been in the business, and he said he is celebrating his 37th year in business. So it just shows you that you can work us to death, but you can't kill us. So that's the good news. So,
Yep.
So we've both been doing this for a very long time. So welcome, Mike. I really am happy that you're here.
Thank you.
So tell us a little bit about Brubaker and Associates. You started when, and how many associates do you have there?
So now I started appraising in 82. Didn't open up Brubaker and Associates till 88. So whatever the math is, I think we figured out 37 years as Brubaker and Associates. Started out with just me, the sort of typical thing. We grew rapidly. We grew by about one appraiser a month for 3 years.
Wow.
Yep. We had, in our heyday, we had about 35 appraisers. We are much smaller than that now. We're about 15 appraisers. And, the problem is a lot of appraisers look like me. They're not retiring, they're dying. We buried 3 appraisers last year.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
That worked at your firm?
Yeah, we work them to death. Work them to death, apparently. And that's unfortunate. But it goes to, the appraisal field is so much fun that once you get into it, appraisers really don't retire.
Really?
It's a field they can do forever and ever and ever.
It gets in the blood.
It gets in the blood. It keeps them sharp, keeps them active. They love to do it. There's their professionalism. You got to know what you're doing. But the customer service, the interaction, that's what most appraisers really enjoy.
So we were talking before we got on the podcast. You actually got your degree from U of H in architecture.
Yes.
All these years I've known you. Really, I've known you, I think, my entire career. I never knew that. So What, were you just interested in homes from the very beginning?
So I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. I'm still trying to figure it out. But my dad was an engineer. And so I started college thinking, okay, I'll be an engineer. Turns out I didn't really like that. And a couple of years into it, I saw the guys over in the School of Architecture having more fun.
Yes.
And so,
by that you mean they partied more?
That and their projects were more fun. The engineers were having fun. I don't know if you remember the old days. U of H had a concrete canoe race.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, they still do that.
Down Buffalo Bayou,
yes.
past River Oaks.
Yes.
Various guys would build a concrete canoe and then you race them down the bayou. Well, the architects were doing kind of the same thing, but their stuff was infinitely more creative. We weren't just into canoes. We were taking anything we could find, make it look like a house, make it look like something, and race it down the bayou.
Oh, I love that.
So, there were a number of things, but it turns out apparently I'm better with crayons than I am with complex math.
Got it. So you did really well with that.
Yes.
So then what got you into the appraisal business?
So I came out of U of H with a degree in architecture at exactly the wrong time. Timing matters. Very shortly into my architectural career, in the early 80s here in Houston, we lost 100,000 jobs.
Wow.
And the firm I worked for, we didn't do houses. We did big commercial things. They did all of Allen Center.
Wow.
They did all of Greenway Plaza. These were big building people. And everybody that was building big in Houston, that was, again, those were all oil and gas jobs.
Right.
All our big projects dropped off. Everything quit. That was an 85-member architectural firm. And when I left voluntarily, but I could see the writing on the wall. There were only 35 people left.
Oh my gosh.
So it was a bad time to come out and be an architect.
So then why, what gave you the idea to go into appraisal?
That was accidental. And it wasn't appraisal first. I decided, okay, I want to sell real estate. And
oh darn! I wish I had known you then. We would have had a good time.
Oh my God, absolutely. Now, I got into it, and my clients, the guys I was helping buy a house, were my age at the time.
Right.
And I did pretty good. I sold like 4 houses in 3 months.
Oh, that's good.
But the problem is my phone rang all day and all night.
Yes.
And I did not like that.
Yes.
It just didn't suit me well. I tell all the realtors I know, you guys work way too hard.
And you couldn't watch football on Sunday.
Well, with me, it was more, I couldn't have 3 pictures of margaritas because somebody wanted to go look at a house.
Yes, I get it.
Yeah.
So you decided to go into the appraisal route. But, it's interesting because I think that in the real estate business, we really rely on the appraisal side of it. We really, we like going to classes. Mike did a class for us today, and it was, everybody was just all ears on what he had to say, and it really is interesting. So let's share some of the things that you shared with us to the audience today. So when you go in and you do an appraisal, I think for starters, I think it's always interesting when I go on a listing appointment and I go in to look at HCAD, or the Harris County Appraisal District.
Yep.
And how often the appraisal district's square footage is different than the square footage that is actual. So I'll look at a house and I'll look at HCAD and say, this house feels larger, and I'll want to quote the larger square footage. So I can't, because the multiple listing service says I have to either quote per the seller, per the builder, or per an appraisal. So unless I have one of the definite numbers, I have to call an appraisal. So I call you and say, can you come out and do a square footage appraisal? And most of the time it's worth the money for a seller to get a square footage appraisal if the appraisal number comes out larger than the square footage in the Harris County Appraisal District website. Number one, why is the number different? So and number two, when y'all go out and measure, are you measuring exterior brick to exterior brick? Because sometimes my sellers will go, well, I've done the measurements and I've done these measurements. Why are their measurements different than your measurements?
Yep.
Can you share with us both of those?
So, an awful lot. Sometimes the appraisal district just has the wrong information. They never go out and measure homes anymore. Years ago, they used to, and the story I keep telling folks, and I think it might be true, is that one of their guys got bit by a dog and sued Harris County or somebody,
Really?
and they don't come by and measure your house anymore. They really don't. So they look at other sources. Sometimes it's builder plans. And I've seen situations where a builder planned on building their 2,600 square foot plan, but switched it because a buyer said, no, I want this bigger house on that lot.
Gotcha.
But HCAD already had the smaller living area. So those things happen.
So from a taxpayer standpoint, they're happy that it shows the smaller square footage because
until they want to sell the house.
Until they want to sell the
Yes.
house. So that's the time when the homeowner should call you and say, can you come out and do a square footage appraisal? And that square footage appraisal is not a full appraisal, so they pay a little less than they would a full appraisal. And you just come out and you measure the house. So when you measure the house, how are you measuring it? Are you measuring it the same as the homeowner would, or how are you actually measuring it?
So There's a standard. The acronym is ANSI, ANSI, the American National Standards Institute.
Okay.
They tell us exactly how to measure a house, and it's different for different property types. For a single-family detached dwelling, exterior wall to exterior wall, so brick to brick around the corners. For a condominium, oddly enough, all you really own is an air lot, so we call it paint to paint. Inside wall to
So it's
inside
the
wall
inside wall to the inside wall.
on a condominium.
Okay.
If you're an attached, say, a townhouse, it's center of property or center of party wall to center of party wall,
Okay.
and then exterior to exterior on the where there's no party walls. So it's different.
Okay.
It's different. Years ago, again, when HCAD was out measuring, those guys would round their dimensions like to the nearest half foot. These days, all appraisers, some of them are using a multiple of different kinds of tools. Fiberglass tapes, 100 feet long, something like that. They measure to the nearest hundredth of a foot. We all have, most everybody has these laser devices.
Right.
Points a red dot, it'll tell you exactly what that distance is. Those are accurate to within 1,000th of a foot.
Wow.
But we all round. Everybody's going to round to about the nearest tenth of a foot.
Okay.
And no home's ever built quite that accurate.
Round down or round up?
Round to the closest.
Okay.
Whatever the closest number is,
Okay.
we're just going to round. And for that reason, and for, let's imagine a scenario where the house is very, very complicated. There's weird angles that aren't 90 or not 30, 60. You could conceivably get different living areas, same house, if measured by two different appraisers. They should be very close. So I tell folks, look, that a measurement on a house, and I had a discussion with an attorney. She said, well, it's a fact. And I said, no. It's an opinion. It'd be my opinion if I measured the property as to that living area. But if somebody's living area came up, pick a number, 10% different, that's a big difference.
It is.
If it's, half of 1% different, the two appraisers are going to high five each other and go, we were close. But you should expect some difference. And the more complicated the house is, the greater that difference is going to be.
Gotcha.
So it's an opinion, it's not a fact. But for you and what you're talking about, and I tell, realtors, really what you're doing is you are moving liability from you as the realtor to me as the appraiser, and you can say 3,672 square feet per appraisal. You keep that in your file, and if later somebody wants to litigate something, well, you pull that out, and it's got my name on it or whatever appraiser did it, and you're home free.
Gotcha.
Yep.
So in the meeting this morning with us, and that was very, very helpful, and thank you very much.
Always
I
have
didn't
fun
tell you
doing that.
Thank you. You were very helpful. You shared with us why some homes include on the square footage include a quarters or a guest house, and some don't include the quarters and guest house. And I thought it was interesting how you told us why some are considered part of the square footage and some quarters are not considered part of the square footage.
Yep.
Can you share with the audience that? I know I asked you probably 3 times today to repeat it, so again, share with the audience.
So really, it's and you fall back on those ANSI guidelines, and anybody can Google those. Just Google ANSI living area, and you'll come up on that. So that's the controlling factor. But generally speaking, if you're just looking for a ballpark answer to that question, is one of the key phrases is in there is contiguous space. If I can walk unobstructed from the primary living to the quarters, and maybe there's a door between them, then that could be considered living area.
So what do you mean unobstructed though?
Well, okay, if I have to imagine, some folks have quarters that are out over their 2-car detached garage.
Okay.
If I walk outside the house to get to that quarters, that's not living area.
Okay.
The minute I have to leave that air-conditioned space to go to another space that's no longer a living area. And that's not me saying that. That's ANSI saying that.
Okay.
So, we don't really, those sorts of things are not our opinion.
Gotcha.
That's driven by guidelines, and these guidelines, the ANSI guidelines, are mandated, or appraisers are mandated by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD, and the VA to use those guidelines.
So that's not just one appraiser's opinion. It is the ANSI guidelines.
That's how it has to be done.
Okay.
That's how it has to be done.
So it's not an opinion of the realtor of, oh, this should be part of the square footage. If they're following the ANSI guidelines, which everybody should,
yes,
right, then it's that way. So then the next question I have is, high rises are the big buzz today. Is it normal for y'all when you go out and you do an appraisal to measure the square footage of a balcony only because the larger the balcony, the better? Does that add to the value of the high rise?
So it's interesting. We didn't go through that this morning. High rises present their own unique problem. And let's just to make it simple, let's imagine.
I just moved to high rise.
Did you? I tell my wife I can do it. She says I can't.
I have not stepped out on my balcony more than one time in 3 months.
So you don't have a little hibachi grill out there that
No,
you're
I
grilling
do
your
not.
steaks?
I do not.
You don't smoke cigars?
I do not.
Yeah, me either.
Oh, yeah.
Some projects, famously, the four-leaf towers don't have balconies. Some folks want a balcony.
Yes.
Some folks don't care. I mean, so that's sort of a buyer preference. And if we're looking at comparable sales, well, really, we're looking for, if we're appraising for something in four-leaf, we're using sales in four-leaf. The sales down the road across the street a little bit at the Houstonian aren't really good indicators of what a unit in four-leaf towers is worth. But the living area is quoted actually by the Homeowners Association. So here's what happens. Let's imagine they have a 10,000 square foot entire building envelope, and there's 4 units in there.
Okay.
The HOA bills the property owner based on 2,500 square feet each.
Okay.
Even though that unit doesn't have 2,500 square feet. Some of that space is elevator, lobby, mechanical structures.
Got it.
So we go measure it, again, paint to paint, all that. It inevitably comes up different. But in MLS, all our comparable sales will be based on what the HOA quotes, that 2,500 square feet.
Gotcha.
So we still measure it, report it, and then when we go to our comparable sales section, we're looking at those sales that are on CAD the way they were originally designed at 2,500 square feet. It's a unique problem that is really specific to high-rise condos.
But the larger the balcony space, do you give that value? Is the condominium worth more in the appraiser's eyes because it's got more square footage of balcony living space?
So if you're a penthouse,
yes.
We've got some of these over here that the very top floor is 2 or 3 floors.
Yes.
And on the lower of their floor, even though it's floor number 21, they have a pool and a balcony. That's worth huge money.
Really?
Huge money, yes.
Yes.
But if your unit you've got a corner unit and
Even
it's got the little balcony.
Even though you go to high rise for maintenance free and then you go have a balcony.
Oh, yeah.
A pool on your balcony.
Yeah. Yeah, and there's a pool downstairs that's being maintained by the the HOA.
Yes.
Yeah. There's penthouses are penthouses.
Yes. They're sexy.
Oh yes.
Yes.
And
I could picture you in a penthouse.
Yeah, maybe. I just got to figure out how to get my cars and my hobbies up there so I can work on them out on that balcony with the pool while I'm getting a suntan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about schools and how the schools, I asked you this in the training this morning, but how schools go into play in the value of homes.
So, and we didn't dig too much into it. We actually did some. Some neighborhoods, people are moving into those neighborhoods, and there's some high schools, say in Katy, where people move in there because they want their son to play football on that team.
Right.
Sometimes they're moving into a neighborhood because the elementary school has special features and has a great reputation, and they want to get their children into that elementary school.
Right.
So in some neighborhoods, many neighborhoods, the schools, it's location,
Always.
but that school is one of the driving concerns. So schools matter unless you're in Montrose.
Yes.
And I'm picking on Montrose. People are not buying in Montrose for schools.
Right,
Most of
right.
them don't really have kids. They're moving there because they want to be close to town and bars and restaurants. So there's some neighborhoods where it doesn't apply at all.
Got it.
Most residential neighborhoods, it matters huge.
Yes.
Yes.
I actually just came from a listing appointment today and met the nicest guy, and he lives out of the country. And he grew up in one of the West Memorial neighborhoods.
Yep.
And he hasn't been back in a while, and he just could not believe the development that's gone on in these neighborhoods. And it really is amazing.
Yes.
It's just amazing how Houston is thriving. And I said, even during COVID, it really didn't slow us down. I mean, Houston
Really
is
did not.
one of these areas that are one of these cities that just continues the growth and the excitement. Well, I know we don't have a lot of time left, but this topic of appraisals, I could talk forever and ever, and I know you for sure
I clearly can.
talk forever and ever. But tell us, tell the audience a little bit about what sort of reasons people need an appraisal. Like, let me just jumpstart and say, let's just say the tax bills come out every year, and you can always call your local realtor to give you comps, but you could also call Brubaker and Associates and get an appraisals to help you fight your tax appraisal.
Yep.
Right? Or if somebody is going to do a remodel on a home and they want to spend X amount of money on a kitchen, and they want to know what kind of value that will add to their home, could they call you and come out and do that?
Absolutely.
So what other reasons do you see people calling you for?
So, you know what?
they're getting divorced.
Oh, yeah. So we're involved with people's happiest days.
Yes.
When they buy that house or they buy a second home down at the beach or whatever. But then, life happens and divorce happens. So, in the division of assets, maybe somebody wants the house, maybe neither one of them want the house, but generally speaking, those divorce attorneys are going to insist on a value of the property.
Right.
The same thing with estates. People die. We had somebody call us the other day, and they needed a value as of date of death, which is generally, and sometimes people don't figure that out for a couple of years.
Right.
This one, 2004.
Wow.
How they had gone through 20 years.
Wow.
And nobody ever told them, well, we need this value. We get accountants that'll call us because their client may be considering a move, and they want to know the value, the tax consequences. Are they going to lose money? Are they going to make money?
Right.
We get calls from people that, as an example, years ago, I bought the property next door to my office building.
Uh-huh.
And, imagine I wasn't an appraiser, but I want to go talk to my neighbor and make him an offer. I don't know what it's worth.
Right.
Or he would.
So who are you going to call?
Who are you going to call?
Mike Brubaker.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. So there's so many different reasons.
So
that
many
people,
reasons.
Yes.
So many reasons. And every now and then somebody will come up with this new reason that I go, nobody's ever called me for that before.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is great. So there's always a reason. We'll say thank you today, and then we'll call you back and dig a little deeper into the wonderful world of appraisers. But for right now, just remember, in the world of real estate, your home is
Our expertise.
There you go. So thank you for tuning in.